Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am going to do the shadow pass in Arnold. So when I'm doing the shadow pass, first off, let's go into our render setup. And the render setup, we want to make a layer and we want the character on it. So here I'm going to go in and add this in, and I'll actually first let's go make a render layer and we'll call this Shadow Pass. Okay, something like that, whatever. Great. I could put render layer on it too, whatever I want to do. And I've got the character selected. I'll just go in here and deselect some things, just make sure I have anything else selected. Okay, cool. And we're going to make a collection of that. Right click, create collection, and I'm going to add that in. Yeah, we'll just say that's good enough for now. I'm not going to get too carried away with some of these other filters. And I want to figure out what this is going to connect to. So I'm going to grab some of these pieces, and hopefully I don't have a weird issue when I do this, because I noticed that I was having issues with these acting strange, and I have to export them and import them back in. Just all the areas that I suspect the shadows are going to fall on. Okay, something like that. Aha. Okay, great. So it's just going to be a sidewalk in these pieces. And I'm going to make another collection out of that. Great collection. Okay, and you could change the name of this so that this is like, what do I want to call this? Walker Shadow. Something like that. Okay, great. And then this one here, that'll be the Shadow Catcher. Even though Catcher is probably not a good term to use, because that's something that's obsolete in the previous version of Arnold. Previous big update for Arnold 4, or 1.4, whatever you want to call it. So on this shadow catcher here, I've got that selected. I'm just going to go and add all these pieces in. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at what's going on in here. So got this in. For this pass, I don't need the AOVs. And right up in here, there's a little shortcut to select your AOVs, and also your lights too. If you need a pass here, and you don't need the lights in it, but we're making a shadow pass, so we need lights. But if you middle click, you can drag it and drop it on the pass, and then go, and where it says AOVs, this will disable it, so you won't actually have AOVs on this pass. Okay. So next thing I want to do, I am going to go in here and let's go and take this and let's see what it looks like when I render. Arnold Render, and my render is sitting over here, and let's see, I'm in a different perspective, so flip over to the other perspective. Okay, cool. We can see I'm picking up in some reflections here. You can see the shadow. That's the animal we want right there. Okay, but I don't want the character to show up. I want his shadow. So if I take this piece of geometry here, and on the shadow walker, can we go in here and make the override? There's shade override, connection override, no. So I'm going to go into the attribute editor. There's probably another way to do this, but I'm still kind of like hunting around and trying not to get confused with other softwares. Now in the render stats, we have something here called primary visibility, but Arnold has one of those too, right here. Primary visibility. And if I right click, I get an option to go absolute override. Absolute is going to make an override for every object in the collection, or I can do it relative override for each object. In this case, because I've made a collection of this, I can make it so that every object that's in this collection, primary visibility is off. Well, let's just check that out. So there we are. I got the shadow still. I can also do something. I notice it's in reflections. I only want shadows. So I'm going to go in here to let's see, we're in Arnold, so it's a specular reflection, and I'll create an absolute override, create one here for this one as well. Did I just miss? I think I just missed. You bastard. because it's rendering at the same time I'm doing this. I probably should stop this. Here, let's just stop it. Okay, and let's try it again. If I go into the collection, and I was in the attribute editor on this object, and okay, diffuse rendering. I hope that let's see if I can undo my way out of this. Okay, there it is. So right click and create absolute override. Diffuse transmission, specular transmission. Okay, and I'm just gonna turn these off. All I wanted to do is cast shadows. And let's check out the render again. And what the hell is that? Still showing up over there. Maybe it's not a reflection. Okay, well, I don't know what this thing is, so maybe that's what it is, a transmission, but that doesn't make sense. Absolute override, turn it off. Go away. No. Okay, I am having some problems with some of these pieces of geometry, so I'm just going to assume that's not a big deal right now. Okay, so the next thing is, we go down to this other collection here. Let's close this, and I'm going to close this off. So got these little, it's showing us all these primary visibilities and other changes here that we're making to this collection. If I go to the shadow catcher area here, I'm just going to make a material override, and I'm going to put a Arnold. See, I put a shadow mat on here, and there we're getting this piece of geometry is going to cause me problems. Okay, I thought I got rid of all these things. What I ended up having to do was export this out as an OBJ and import it back in and delete this one, and it broke whatever connection it was. It was giving me some issues. But now when I do the override, if I go in here to render, bloop, okay, and again we're having this thing. Actually, I'm just going to pause for a second. I'm going to get rid of this and bring it back in. Okay, so I just went and I fixed it, and I'll just put on the render again. Come on. And we'll see that went away. Okay, now we're getting total black here. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to cycle through the RGB. I'm clicking on RGB. We go to red. Come on, green, blue. And there's my alpha. My alpha's showing me kind of what's going on. Oh, damn it, I hit it again and I went to luminosity. Okay, I'm just going to stop this. There we go. And can I cycle through these a little bit faster? There. So next thing is we've got this problem here. So we had a material override on this thing. So we always see when we get to RGB is this material. Okay. But then what I also want to do is let's just take this piece of geometry, and I'm going to go in and I want it to not cast shadows on itself. So I'm going to right click and I'll do an absolute override for everything, and I'll turn off the shadows. And let's go into Arnold, and we'll go here to render again. RGB. Red, green, blue. Okay, and they're alpha. So now we're just getting just the shadow for the character. And I could go in and, by the way, clean up all the anti-aliasing on the shadow and everything like that. Okay, cool. That's what I got. I'm happy. Let's go and hit it again. Luminosity. And RGB again. Now, another problem we have is that we get black and we can't see our shadow because it's black as well. So I'm just going to go into the render settings here, and in the Arnold renderer there's the environment section. I'm going to go to background, and I'll just put on a sky shader, and that should, oh, and I have to hit the button again over here because I turned it off, and boom, I've got a shadow. Okay, so now I've got a render, or I got a render setup, so I have a render layer that's going to take out my shadows. And let's see, I have to update something on here. Okay, cool. And that's it. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to take all this stuff into Nuke.